Hello. Let's preface this by saying that I talked about practical magic in the very early dark days of baldbookgeek, before it was baldbookgeek, when I didn't know how to edit, when I didn't know what the hell I was doing and even how to format videos into a decent resolution. So, yes, I'm going to talk about practical magic. This is a book that I would find very difficult to review. It's a flawed book in places, but it's difficult to review because it is one of my favourite novels. And the film is also one of my favourite films. And just to say this, in the UK, there is no such thing as a Blu-ray version of this yet. And I'm waiting, so please put this out on Blu-ray because this DVD is a double-sided thing that I hate. The books on screen format doesn't quite work for this because these both tell the same story to the letter. The same story beats, the same characters, the same words. And it's one of the few times I prefer the film to the book, but only by a few points, and I'll explain that later. So, first things first, what is practical magic about? It's about sisters. It's about relationships of women through generations. It's a generational thing. You have the aunts, the nieces, and eventually the daughters, and it tells this very strong female-led, female-focused story of family and love and heartbreak in a beautiful way. The film casting is perfect. Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman as Sally and Gillian. The film focuses more on them. That's one of the key differences, and the film condenses the story down, where the book takes place over the course of a few years. The main bulk of the story, including the creepy ex, the film condenses that down into a shorter space of time. And it keeps the story focused in the house, this beautiful house they built, shell they built for the film, in this sort of New England style, beautiful white house, which is a house that I want. So I'll start with a little summary of the book in that sense, as in, I love Alice Hoffman. She is a fantastic writer, and I use the word fantastic a lot because it's a buzzword. But she is one of those writers that I will go out and I will buy her work. And this also has another book set within the same kind of prequel, The Rules of Magic, which is just as good, but this is still one of my favourite books. There's just something about witches. And I'm going to tell you how I discovered it. I discovered the film on late night TV by accident. And I'm not kidding. It was on some obscure... I think it was on like Channel 5 at like 1 a.m. when I was about 13 and I couldn't sleep. And that's how I discovered this film. And I remember that when they repeated it, because Channel 5 used to do the same films on a loop, I recorded it onto tape and very quickly went out and bought the DVD. Yeah, it's been with me for a very long time. The book I discovered a few years later. I found a really old, beaten up paperback of a book that was in a local charity shop. And that fell apart. I probably read that book for so many times. And then a few years ago, I managed, very lucky, to get a hardback. This is the US hardback, and I have to admit the US edition is gorgeous. And the cover is really fitting of the story. And ironically, comes from here. So, yes, I bought it secondhand, and it came all the way from little Cannon Beach Book Company on Cannon Beach, Oregon. So that was quite fun. It's funny that I always think the characters in this practical magic, both the book and the film, represent the women in my life in quite an unusual way. I always say Sally reminds me of my mother, and Gillian reminds me of two of my best friends. And oddly enough, a little bit of my grandmother in that mix. I think it is the fact that these are everyday women. These are women that we meet, know. They're women in our lives. I think the way it's written is just beautiful. I love Alice Hoffman's writing style, and I love how they translated it into a film. It's very difficult to say that my normal books versus screen format doesn't work for this, because I just want to talk about it. This also kind of opened my eyes to a few things, and there is something about gay men and witches. I don't know what it is, be it the Witches of Eastwick, be it Charmed, be it Buffy, be it Practical Magic, be it Hocus Pocus, or even The Craft. You know, a diet of these very strong women on screen. And I love that. I think the film kind of softens some of the elements of the book. Like, although the storyline is condensed down into a shorter period of time, it condenses certain elements and softens certain elements. The ending is a little different. Character development is slightly different. Gillian's ex-boyfriend is a very different character than the film and the book. But they do tell a great story, this film and this book. And the film built up a massive cult following. It was not a critical darling when it came out, the film. I can see why. It was very against the current of films of sort of the late 90s. The soundtrack to this is good as well. And the book has met with its fair share of critics. And I can see that they're both flawed, but they are both really good and very strong. And saying, you know, me standing on my high horse and then they're really strong, really good. I think we always take flaws in material for what they are. But when you kind of get pulled in and you understand these relationships and the main focus of this story, of these women, of this family, of this moment, of what's going on around them, you realise that they represent women that we know, women that we talk to, women that we see, our mothers, our sisters, the women in our lives, our best friends. The book versus movie debate is kind of null and void because they both do such a fantastic job of telling the same story. I want to know what you guys think. Have you guys read Practical Magick? Have you guys seen the film, read the book? Have you read Alice Hoffman's work, The Rules of Magic, for example? It'll be interesting to find out, so if you guys can comment, that'll be fantastic. And I'm going to link to my very old video down below that you can cringe and laugh at. So I will talk to you guys later. Bye.